So I'm delighted to welcome you all to this panel as part of the Penn Alumni Weekend. And I'm also really delighted to introduce to you our, three of our four panelists this afternoon. And before I do that, I just sort of want to make a very few introductory remarks. And I'm sure that all of us are familiar with the debates about reality television. This new, I would call it a meta genre actually, because it covers so many different kinds of generic forms, has just burgeoned in the last, particularly in the last 10 years, but we can actually look back even as far as the early 70s to sort of see some early precursors. But it really raises very interesting questions about things like realness, about authenticity, about ordinariness, or as I just learnt from Mark, that they aren't celebrities versus ordinary people, but celebrities versus civilians, which suggests a slightly militaristic ways of thinking about actors. But
you're either one or the other.
We can come on to that later. And so what's really great about this panel this afternoon is that we have people working on both sides of the camera who've been in some very prominent shows and or produced some very prominent shows to get a sense of how this actually looks from inside the industry. And I'm also very aware that this is part of the Alumni Weekend, and so one of the things that I'm interested in is, I know Penn offers all sorts of types of education, both inside and outside the classroom, so I'm really interested to hear if and how people consider their Penn education and experience as being something that they have sort of returned to in ways of thinking about what their work is about. And I'm also really interested in reality television and debates about it being kind of a lowbrow genre and the ways in which it kind of really gets trashed, particularly in the popular press, but also amongst scholars. And as a scholar, in fact, I didn't even introduce myself, I just realised. I'm Katherine Sender. I'm a professor at the Annenberg School, and what part of my research is on reality television. And I'm currently finishing a book about audiences who watch makeover programmes in particular. So I'm actually going to completely monopolise this panel to ask them lots of questions that I actually really need for my research, and not let anyone else get a word in edgeways. So part of what I'm trying to do when I'm thinking about people who watch makeover television is to think about the ways in which this is seen as being really lowbrow, really trashy, lowest common denominator, and etc. as a medium, but also the ways in which audiences tend to get really disparaged for watching these kinds of shows. And most of the people I know watch some kinds of reality television, and most of these people also feel somewhat guilty and or ashamed about it. So I'm really interested in asking our panelists how that kind of plays out from behind and in front of the camera, whether you have to do any kind of justifying to your families or friends about what you're up to. Okay, so without further ado, I will introduce our panelists. So starting from my far right, Mark Cronin, rather extraordinarily did a degree in chemical engineering in 1986. Well, not that it was extraordinary that you did that.
No, it was extraordinary.
It's something of a transition. And you were an engineer for 5 years, and then you became a comedy writer for Howard Stern. And when I read that, I thought, I'm not sure that I'm allowed to talk to this person. My feminist credentials might go down the toilet if I'm that. Anyway, but then, since then, you've been producing reality television, including The Surreal Life, Flavour of Love, I Love New York, and my own personal favourite, Bridal Plasty, which I can't wait to talk to you about. And then next we have Kristin Haskin Simms, who did English and French and finished in 1993. And you were a contestant on Project Runway Season 8, which is actually the most seasoned, the one. So, which is another of my favourite shows. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that. And then we have Charlie Herschel, and you did communications and economics, and you graduated in 2001, your 10-year anniversary. Does that make you feel really old?
Nah, next to them.
And so you were an avid fan, Survivor, and then a contestant in 2008. And now you are, and before and after you've been an attorney, and right now you're an attorney for American Express. And so joining us any minute will be Goldman, and he was a graduate from 1996. He's responsible for such shows as Secret Millionaire, Shaq's Big Challenge, How to Look Good Naked. So we will be welcoming him as he comes in. So the way that this is going to work is each of the panelists is just going to say a little bit about their trajectory from Penn to what they've been doing in the reality TV industry. And then we'll sort of open it up. I'll ask them a few questions that I hope will sort of open up various themes. And then we can invite everybody else to say what you want and ask questions as you wish. So, Mark, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I like to say that, talking about my Penn experience and how important Penn was to me in my eventual career, that I had a very unique double major. That I majored in chemical engineering, as you mentioned, and I majored in mask and wig as well. And they really were in equal status for me my entire time here, and got in each other's way quite a bit. I eventually ended up on academic probation because I was dressing as a woman every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And it was hard to study, the heels, it was painful, it was all of that. So, but it turns out they were both absolutely crucial to me. That they were, where I sit now as a producer of reality television is really kind of an entertainment engineer. That unique among the entertainment genres, I think, fairly unique among the entertainment genres. It's a world of people who solve problems in the real world in order to create entertainment. Scripted entertainment doesn't need the real world at all. It can create its own complete enclosed environment. But reality television, you're using real people, real situations. You don't know the outcomes that you're going to get. And almost every reality show has its own very difficult set of problems to solve. Some reality shows are on the road around the world. Some reality shows are on boats. Some reality shows are stuck in a house somewhere. Some reality shows involve, very young people. Some involve very old people. There's all kinds of, there's almost nothing in common between all the different reality genres that there are, and they all come with their own production problems. So my engineering background has been absolutely crucial in my ability to solve problems and do things on time and under budget, and the business of show business is really what I took from that. And then Mask and Wig made me completely silly and embrace the ridiculous, and that combination has worked very well for me. The other important thing I think that Penn brought me was a set of friends that went into entertainment out of school, Veldy Appleton and Amy Friedman especially, who ended up working in entertainment and showed me that you could actually work in entertainment. I was primarily an engineer because I wanted to have a job when I graduated, and I felt that everybody who was going to New York to be an actor was going to starve. And I was pretty much right, but Veldy and Amy were actually working. Amy was working for MTV, and Veldy was doing special effects for films, and I really felt like maybe I'd made a mistake, channeling my life into engineering. And Amy actually was the first one to ever hire me to write a joke. She was producing a television news spoof, and she used to pay me $100 a joke that I would write on the way to work as an engineer. And I was soon making as much money doing that as I was as an engineer, and I really realized that I had to get out of engineering, that I'd made a mistake. And so it's my Penn education, my Penn extracurricular activities, and my Penn connections that really, honestly, got me started and got me going.
That's a lot of money per joke.
It was incredible. I would only sell 1 or 2 a week initially, but then when I started selling 6 and 7, I was making as much at that as the engineer, and then I just knew I had to go. I had to get out. So it was great.
Yeah. Well, okay, when I came to Penn, I had no idea what I wanted to do, really. I thought that I wanted to go to law school. I thought I was going to transfer to Wharton. I mean, I really wasn't sure what my purpose here was initially, but then I love writing, and I thought there were some great courses here. I took a wonderful class with Phil Reese, who's now in charge of the Kelly Writers House, and there's been one of my namesake actually taught here, Kristin Haskin Simms, in the English department. So really it seemed like that was my calling, writing, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to pursue a career in writing and communications, and I don't know, I want to live in New York. That was it. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I graduated, except maybe go to law school, which I was still thinking about at that time. But I guess a detour in my Penn career was when I did a study abroad in Paris. Paris in 1991, which really just opened my eyes to the world. I mean, I knew I wanted to travel. I loved the idea of traveling, but the thought of it I always thought was so daunting. But when I did the study abroad program, I mean, not many of my friends, nobody was doing it. Nobody even knew where I was. I mean, people were calling my dorm room in High Rise North and was like, where is she? Because my roommate still kept my voice on the machine as a joke. And I'm like, oh my God, did she drop out? You know, so it was always whispers. And then finally a month later, you know, they said that, yeah, she's in Paris. So it was just our little thing. But it was just unheard of, really, for many people to do it. But it was a great experience. I met such a wide variety of people who I'm still good friends with today. We have some people at Columbia, some people from Amherst, from different programs. And you know, just seeing, just being able to go to New York, I think just opened my eyes to the possibilities and finding other Penn alums, seeing what they were doing. But the interesting thing is a lot of them were like, yeah, I want to go to law school. No, I don't. I mean, everybody was still in that quandary, like, what do I want to do working in finance? And, you know, not understanding, you know, following your passion until really when I went to RISD, getting my MFA in graphic design, that's when I realized that, okay, this is what I was supposed to do, but I feel like my foundation in English, in problem solving, and just some of the readings that I had here was really great preparation for that. So I'm always glad that I did a liberal arts background as my foundation and going straight to art school because, I don't know, I just thought if I went to art school, I'd just end up on crazy drugs or just, I don't know, just trying to find myself in the desert. I'm not sure, like I wasn't, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do anyway when I came to Penn, so let alone go to art school. I'm like, oh my God, colors. But yeah, so graphic design was my base, but then somehow I ended up in fashion. I mean, how did I do that? So I really went a circuitous route and finding who I am, and I think it was good that at least I had the foundation here to understand, to know better about things, to make the right choices, and really, I mean, just to transition from graphic design to fashion really helped me. You know, I understand the similarities, and then on a whim, I applied to Project Runway, and who knew? Tim Gunn loved me, so I was very happy about that.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so, Charlie, what does your trajectory look like?
Listening to their stories is making me feel a little bit bad about myself because I did not follow my dreams and my passions, and I am the lawyer, and I did go to law school.
My family did, don't worry about it.
But I redeemed myself a little later on because while I was at Penn, I developed this like crazy obsession for reality TV and specifically for Survivor. The first season of Survivor aired while I was a senior at Penn, and my roommates from Penn are here, and they can attest to the fact that I used to cut out from every entertainment magazine the like faces of the contestants, and I had a very elaborate Survivor wall, and I counted down to the Survivor finale clock, and I dressed up every Thursday night to watch Survivor. It was a big deal in my life, but I would just remain a fan and be a lawyer. But then on a whim, 17 seasons later, I just tossed in my first application and thought, what the hell, I'll never have this experience unless I try, and then one thing led to another, and I was in Gabon for 7 weeks, so I had my 7 weeks of glory, whereas they're living out their dreams. And now I'm back to being a lawyer.
We'll ask about that too. So, actually, could you both of you who've been on the shows, can you talk a little bit more about like the application process? Because I think, you know, that sort of many people have had ideas, oh, I'd love to be on that show, whatever, and then it seems such a huge thing from having that wish to actually be. So Charlie, maybe you could start that. So what was the process like?
The process it's a roller coaster because I'm not used to Hollywood and the casting and all that stuff. I was just a regular lawyer. And they tell you it's about a 6-month process, and they are constantly saying, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. So you get your hopes up and you get your hopes down, and you have no control over it. It's completely luck. So they say just be yourself, and then you put your fate in the hands of the casting producers, and then hope that something happens. But people always ask me, how do I get on? Can you get me on? I want to be on The Amazing Race. That's what everyone wants to be on. But I have no idea what to tell people beyond apply, because it's the only thing that I think people don't do that cuts them out. But
to do a crazy video where you had to charm them or do something silly?
Yeah, you have to submit a video, and I sort of went like balls to the wall and tried to be crazy, but I guess that worked. So you just never know. I mean, I took like 2 days worth of psych tests, and I assume they want to put like someone with this personality with that personality, and you just don't know which personality they want your psych test to come out as. So you just have to be honest and.
So you don't think that's just a check that you're not going to completely freak out?
They're going to check that you are going to completely freak out.
We'll talk more about casting in a minute. What about you,
Yes.
Kristin? What was your process?
Funny thing is, it really wasn't that big a deal. I mean, there's all these other things that I was doing in my life. I said, okay, I'll try out, and look what happened. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Unless you try out, how are you gonna know, where you stand or whether you get casted or not? But there is a process. I'm still technically under contract, so I can only say so much without Harvey Weinstein kind of coming in here saying you
Don't
did
do
what?
that.
You don't want that. So what I can say is, as far as the initial process, yeah, you have the video, and I think I tried on every garment I ever made, and I put it in a fast forward. But the thing is, my garments are a size 4. I'm like a size 8, 10. So, so it's kind of like a funny thing about me trying to squeeze in the thing. I'm like, hey, you don't act really pretty. But, but it was like really fast forward, and it was just being yourself. They want you to be your own character, whoever you are. And if it's fake, they can see right through that, I think. And so you do that, and then whatever, I don't even remember, honestly. I remember I sent it in the day before it was due. I spent like $50 FedEx sending it out, because it took me longer to edit the video than expected. And that was another good thing. At least I knew how to edit my own video. I knew how to shoot and how to edit, because at RISD I took all those classes. So that was something that I didn't have to hire or, ask a friend or beg a friend to do, even if I just said, hey, can somebody hold the camera? I had my dog in the video. Like, I had everything. But yeah, it was really just being myself and filling out the application, and next thing you know, they, call me in for interview, and it wasn't the open call, because you either have the open call where you line up around the block, or they call you in and you're a semifinalist. So that's what gets filmed in case you do get selected.
Right. So Mark, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you go about casting, and I mean particularly going back to what Charlie was saying about psych tests, and how do you decide what kind of people to put in a show?
Well, every show has its own particular casting needs. In the case of Project Runway, you have to have this starting skill. So you're narrowed down to just people who are interested in being designers, and that's a smaller set. Survivor will take almost any age, almost any background, there are certain things that they need in common for Survivor contestants as well. I've had to cast everything from trying to find a group of women who are interested in dating Flavor Flav. It wasn't as hard as you think. I've had to cast brides-to-be who were willing to let us delay their wedding date and practically determine their wedding date, hand over their entire life plans for their wedding to us, and who also wanted plastic surgery procedures, but weren't so incredibly hideously ugly that you couldn't watch them on television. So it's this very fine line that I was looking for in that cast. Sometimes I've had to cast celebrities to do shows, and that's an entirely different kind of casting than casting for civilians, as I said. And in terms of the evaluations that we go through, it is a little needle hole that you have to get through of being. First of all, you need to be very forthright with your feelings. If you're a person who has a rich inner life, you're not really good for television. You need to be someone who is very forthcoming with how you feel. Not afraid to say what you're thinking, not afraid to disagree with people, not afraid to be very forthright, because that's really primarily what we need. We need to hear what's going on. We need to hear your emotions. We need to, it just doesn't work if you're an internal kind of person. So that's kind of a first filter. You need to kind of pop on camera. That's a very, very subjective question, and it really is literally, if you're watching a casting tape and you find yourself looking at something else, that person's not good. If you're watching a casting tape and you can't not look away, then that person's probably going to be very good on television. So that's just whatever that is, popping. And then in terms of psychological evaluation, most of the psychiatric and psychological evaluation, at least that we do at our company, is protection for contestants who are not strong enough to go through a competition process and then lose and take that very hard, and we just don't want responsibility for very drastic events, or people who have an anger issue that is, because obviously you're going to put them together with other people who are forthright with their feelings and are willing to disagree with people, and you can get into conflict, obviously, and we'd like everyone to use their words in their conflicts, but not everybody can do that, as all parents know. And so we look for people who, you know, and it's very hard to predict if somebody has a violent streak, and it's easier to predict with background check, but you're also trying to predict the future sometimes. So there's that issue. You have to be, you know, I hate to say it with contestants here, but you have to be, you know, a little bit nuts, but not so nuts that you're dangerously nuts. It's like, and I say this as a person who I consider myself just as nuts as anybody in the show. So you know, I'm not saying that to be kind of superior. I think that's, you know.
I mean, but there's all. I'm also struck by the other kind. You know, with something like Real World made a complete art of this, where you always had, you know, the gay guy and the Southern Christian homophobe and the anorexic woman from Chicago.
Just checking off the boxes of the types.
So, I mean, so obviously there are characteristics about the kind of personalities of the people involved, but also to what extent do you have to build in a kind of sense of, you know, range of demographics, or, you know...
All of that. I mean, the main thing is that, you know, in any good storytelling, you have conflict and resolution. And in order to create conflict and resolution, you have to start with conflict, and to start with conflict, you have to have disagreement, or worlds in collision, or fish out of water, or any other little phrase like that. And so there's a reason why different personality types or people who come from different backgrounds are thrown together in reality shows, because it's a social experiment, and you're looking for, and it could go either way. The producers are usually just as happy if the Bible Belt Christian makes friends with the militant gay person, or they're just as happy if the Bible Belt Christian can't stand the militant gay person, and you can't lose, but you at least get something interesting out of it. And I think that's why you end up seeing it over and over again. I mean, Real World pioneered it. The rest of us are just, you know, kind of copying that same thing. But there's not too many places to go with that, you know. You are looking for different personality types and worlds in collision as much as you can do it. So. I
was really, I thought it was hilarious recently where I realised that there's, you know, the whole intervention series, you know. Well, there's also relapse, and I thought, so that's what they do with the interventions that don't work. They just made another...
We did Flavor of Love, which was for women who wanted to date Flavor Flav, and they ended up being fairly poorly behaved young women in a lot of cases. Not all of them, but the ones that, you know, we all remember.
What made you come up with that? I'm just curious.
Well, we knew Flavor Flav had done the Surreal Life, and on the Surreal Life he met Bridget Nielsen, who is a very tall Danish movie star from the past, and they fell in love. And so we did a spin-off series called Strange Love, where Flavor Flav went to Italy and dated, basically, Bridget Nielsen. And at the end of that series, she breaks his heart and leaves him and goes back to her little Italian boyfriend. And so we thought, well, poor Flav, here he is, what's the continuing story? We wanted to find the continuing story of his love life, and we came up with the idea of, well, actually when we said it to him, we had a meeting with him, and we said, Flav, what if we, you know, got together like 30 girls who were all competing to, you know, be your girlfriend? And he said, aw, Mark, you know they're never going to pick me. And we said, no, Flav, you're picking from them. And he was, word!
Who is Flavor?
He's a rapper. He was actually a militant rapper from the
Public Enemy,
Public Enemy.
Public Enemy, they're like pioneers of like the whole...
Which brings up the issue of demographics. When you're casting, you're trying to find a group of people that are interesting to your audience, and you need to know your audience. And these days, the audience is very fragmented. You have, you know, particular cable channels are viewed by particular groups, or age groups, or even sexes. And you need to find, especially when casting celebrities, it's a very difficult thing to find celebrities that are, because, you know, Charlie here, you're in a very desirable demographic, and in the 18 to 49 range, and so are you, Kristin. So it's like we'd like to find people that you guys find interesting to see on television. So it's a tricky thing to cast for your demographic. That's my point.
So going back to this whole idea of reality and so on, I'm really interested for both of you who were on the shows whether you felt that the edited version, how closely it resembled sort of your experience of being on the show. And I was particularly struck by, who was the woman who actually ended up winning your season?
Yeah, Gretchen.
She came across so badly. And she talked about having to deal, in the kind of recap, sort of post-final episode, she talked about having to deal with seeing herself as represented as the bitch every week on the show. Was she?
Well, let me tell you. Honestly, Gretchen was pretty cool. I mean, she was kind of like that hippie chick, and Rolling in Thunder, Portland, like crystals. She was that type, but then all of a sudden she became this diva. So I thought it was hilarious that she became this hippie diva. And so it was almost like she had these two different personas.
And that was your experience on the show or in watching it?
That was actually, that's what I experienced on the show, just in my dealing with her or off camera. I mean, I didn't take her that seriously. Other people did.
Right.
And so I think that's when you're talking about personalities and casting your personalities. It's like, who's going to be able to deal with somebody like Gretchen? Or though, I don't know, I saw her casting video and she looked pretty quiet and minimal. So I didn't think of her as being this kind of crazy person. But we're still kind of friends. We're still cool. So I don't have anything negative to say. I mean, congrats to her. I don't feel that her collection was the strongest from a professional standpoint. It wasn't anything personal, but it was just that. I saw it. I was at Fashion Week. I saw it, and I just said, I can't believe that this is a winning collection.
What about it? What was it like for you to see yourself on the screen and be like, oh no, why did they just choose that?
Well, with me, because initially I was not in the fray of all the craziness, and so maybe like except for the first episode, I forgot my model, and that is something I would do. I didn't know where she was. I said, I don't know, she's down there somewhere, and then I didn't realize that we had to go back down and then take them 2 steps to go to makeup. I'm like, why couldn't she have gotten up herself and gone to makeup? I gave her a note, but they said no, she was just sitting down there, like just looking down at the note and not knowing what to do. I'm like, are you serious? So I had to run down, we only had, the first challenge, they said we had 5 hours, it was really 3.5. So that became more stressful, and then what they portrayed, and then also you have to go and find your model and just take them 2 steps to go to, hair or makeup. So that was really annoying, and I said, oh my God, you mean I'm not going to be on the show? I'm good, that's it, this is it for me. But I made it, and it was fine. But the fact that they showed that, they made such a deal, and even in the newspapers, I think it was even trended on Twitter, that, one designer forgot her model, and, it just became this huge thing, and I said, yeah, that is something I would do. Yeah. I mean, I can't even find my phone right now, so... But so it was things like that, and even, the animal woolly balls. I'm the only one who makes him gonna laugh like that, and he said that to me. He just said that, he actually thanked me for that laugh, and who knew that would be a thing. Not about my design or my abilities, it was just more about my kookiness, and that's okay. That's what they chose to highlight.
So I just want to welcome Greg. Thank you.
Hi, sorry I'm late, everybody.
So we'll come back to you in just a sec, but I wanted to follow up with Charlie about how was it for you to see yourself edited on the screen?
I had no problem with it. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we were playing a game on TV, and it was just watching the experience play out was fun. I like photo albums and I like Facebook, and it was like a really souped up version of watching an awesome experience in your life. So it was complete fun, and everyone I thought was pretty much edited as they were on the show. And I don't remember any of the other contestants having complaints or gripes about their editing, because the Survivor is really about the game. It's less about who you are and your personality. It's more about like the strategy behind it. So no one really took the editing very personal.
I think that's generally what what we've experienced is that people who see themselves on television in our shows say, well, that was me. I said that, and that's what happened.
Yeah,
We call it editing uphill. If you're trying to change things that aren't true, you can't. You can do almost anything in an edit room, but to make somebody friends with somebody they're not friends with, or not, it's very difficult. Now we'll use tricks though, like. Sometimes a contestant will work against the producers and say, they're in an interview chair, and they say, well, how do you feel about Kristin? And they'll say, you're not going to get me to say that I hate Kristin. And then with a simple edit, we make that, I hate Kristin. But the truth is that they hate Kristin. It's not, they just didn't want to say it on TV.
Oh yeah, we all talk crap about each other. But I will say
not that anybody hated Kristin.
There are people who hated me. But I don't know why. But there were a couple people on the show I was annoyed with the editing because it made them look better than they actually were. And I would say Gretchen just looked how she was. I mean, Gretchen looked bad, but I knew it was reversed. She was actually really kind, and I think she's a very kind-hearted person. She's just a competitive person, but she'd be great for Survivor actually. But with I won't name the names, but there's some people I'm like, oh my God, they are so not nice. They are so this and that, and they just make them look. The editors or whatever producers make them look like saints. I want to go in and say, no, they weren't. They said these horrible things.
I always say it's not journalism. That we don't do journalism. We're not here to be that. Our integrity is not about that. What integrity we have is not about journalistic integrity. But we do tell the generally true story of what happened. Right. We need to tell the generally true story of what happened. The winner was the winner. And often in a competition show, you start with a winner and work backwards from there and tell the story of how he or she got there. It's generally true, but of course it's compressed. It's, we tape for 2 or 3 days to get a 40-minute episode, and we cherry pick, obviously, and we'll cherry pick people's personalities to some extent, but not fabricate, right? If that helps.
So Brian, we began by giving people a chance to introduce themselves a little bit and say, sort of narrate very quickly your kind of trajectory from Penn to what you're doing now. And,
sure.
So maybe you could just sort of catch people up with that.
Absolutely. So I was in the College of Arts and Sciences. I was pre-med. I wanted to be a doctor, very foolishly. Sorry for any doctors in the house. And I was an English Lit minor, and I went and I graduated, and I actually went to medical school, and I was in the first year, and I realized that there was something wrong for the first time in my life. I've been a huge dork my whole life. I've always loved school, except when I got to medical school, I wasn't into it anymore. And I looked around at everybody else, and everyone else was super excited to be there and really passionate about learning, and I wasn't. For me, the creative wheels weren't really ticking. So I thought, well, I can just keep going through the motions and fake it and make my parents very happy, or I can decide, what do I really want to do with my life? What am I really passionate about? And putting, fear and rationality and everything and good old-fashioned common sense aside, what if I could do anything in the world, what would it be? And it was produced television. And I didn't have this romantic notion of it at all. I grew up in LA, hated everything about LA, hated everything about Hollywood. I just liked that. I've just always been obsessed with the medium and how it can reach so many people. And so long story short, I'm probably already too late. I wanted to be a sitcom writer and really didn't know anybody who was in entertainment at all. Wrote a couple specs, which if anyone's unfamiliar with that, it's speculative scripts. You can do them for TV shows, you can do them for features. I did them for TV shows. Got hip-pocketed by an agent, went on 1 million meetings, couldn't get arrested because I never actually produced anything, and everyone was like, hey, you seem really sharp, glad to meet you, you seem like a great guy, we'll call you, and then my phone was not ringing ever. And then all of a sudden I saw one of the very first episodes of Blind Date, which was that old syndicated dating show, and something clicked in my head, and I was like, this is genius. I feel like this is where it's going, and I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and somehow finagled my way into a job there. I started working for the 2 executive producers of that show as their assistant, and within less than a year, as an assistant, I had sold a show, and they moved me up into development and started working there, and then ran the development, produced some shows for them, and then went over to ABC. I oversaw a bunch of shows for 4 years. Simon Cowell Show, American Inventor, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Extreme Makeover, a bunch of other shows, and then went over and co-founded a company called RDF USA, which is now called Zodiac, and I was there for 4 years and sold and executive produced a bunch of shows, and then after that went and started my own company and still producing shows.
Are you producing an app as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's out. It's called Philo, Philo. You can find it online at playphilo.com. Sounds like an infomercial. But it's basically for anyone who's into, the simple way to describe it is, it's like Foursquare, except it's for TV shows. So you check in the TV shows, you let your friends know what you're watching, you can share on Facebook and Twitter. You can talk to everyone who's talking at the same time about TV shows, and you can earn virtual rewards and real life rewards. So it's a way for fans to engage with other fans, and it's a way for shows to increase awareness and increase intent to plan.
Great. So I was wondering about some of the kind of more challenging sides of both on being on both sides of the camera. So for the two of you who were actually on the shows themselves, I mean, how was it to, when obviously the filming goes on with, at one stage, and then you have to keep quiet about it for months, so apparently. But then how was it to see yourself on camera and to know that other people watching, and when you went to the grocery store, people would say, aren't you on telly and stuff like that? Did that happen? How was it?
That didn't happen to me. I don't think, I live in Manhattan, I don't know anyone who watches Survivor. Like the rare person will tell me they watch Survivor, and if they do, they don't know who I am. And there's so many people on reality television that I think the fans and people who watch reality television, I'm a huge fan of Survivor, and like the winners could walk by me on the street and I would be able to recognize them.
Were you disappointed? Did you think you'd have your moment of fame?
No, I didn't really think about it. No, I wanted to be on Survivor and to like experience like the starvation and the strategy and going to but I didn't really think about like after Survivor what it would be like. And it was fun. I mean, I threw like viewing parties every week, and that part was really fun with my friends. And it was like a celebration of the experience that I had. But I wasn't a celebrity or anything.
Did you see the episodes before they went out, or did you see them at the same
No,
time?
I saw them at the same time, which was a little stressful.
Yeah, it really is stressful when you know that it's coming. You're like, oh God, what am I going to look like? How am I going to be portrayed? And I think I had a viewing party. I mean, I was only on for 4 episodes, and I was actually very happy to get off. People don't understand like how stressful it is, and I was just fine with being eliminated at the time. I said, oh God, I gotta go through another challenge. Like by episode 3. I just said I was done. I was done. I was exhausted, and there was a lot of things behind the scenes. I mean, we had bad food. We had, we couldn't even talk to each other. With the cameras weren't rolling. I mean, there's so many things and tricks that we weren't allowed to do that made it exhausting. Yeah, it was bad.
Kristin Haskin Simms, quiet now. You're giving out too much information on how horrible it is to be on.
So it got better. Oh no, I already said it in the press, so it's already been seen by millions of people.
It strikes me about Project Runway as well, is going back to Mark, what you were saying about people who are kind of quite emotionally expressive and things like that, is that when you look at the actual schedule of like what time you're getting up in the morning, what time you're going to bed at night, no wonder people crying all the time, because who wouldn't cry on 4 hours of sleep a night and running around like headless chickens all day?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about how the two of you who are more involved in the production side deal with a lot of kind of the kinds of criticisms that I was talking about earlier on in the popular press, which is these kinds of shows, their lowest common denominator, and they're trash television, they're exploiting their...
It hurts.
Unfortunately, I can't take it sincere.
It hurts a little. It hurts a little.
I mean, what do your families think about you being involved in this?
Well, my family they're here, and I think that
Wait.
I think that they're proud of their son. My father is a Sirius XM subscriber and listens to the Howard Stern show. I'm outing him here in front of everybody. But he's a history professor, and my thing is, I think that it's more fun to talk about the shows as being, lowest common denominator and those kinds of things. But I mean, I hope that they are actually truly entertaining, and that more people are watching them than you think, and smarter people than you think are watching some of them. I mean, some of them are dopey, and but some of them have enough interesting things going on that I think that an intelligent audience can be found. I like to think that. I think that if a show's funny, it attracts a more intelligent audience, but it still gets trashed. I mean, it's sometimes they're trashing the contestants. Who are these people? They're seeking fame. Isn't that pathetic? Or they'll trash the producers for how we exploit the people who are seeking fame. And but really, it's I don't see it as damaging. It's an entertainment form. It seems to be a very popular one. And a lot of my life has been spent saying, well, popular's good.
I think the biggest issue that my family, me and my wife, her parents have is that wherever we go, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing, if you're at a dinner party, it doesn't matter what the crowd is, because I think to your point, a lot more people watch these types of shows than admit that they watch these types of shows. And as soon as you mention what you do, all the conversation goes to you, and everyone wants to know, how does this work and how does that work, and how do you come up with these shows? And I have a show I want to pitch you, and it becomes a little much. But that's the great thing. I mean, anybody can come up with a good idea. Anybody can be a fascinating character. Everybody does have an interesting story to tell.
Do you really believe that's true?
Oh, absolutely.
Every single person? You just have
everybody has a story, whether they're interesting or not is a whole other.
Right.
I'm sure Mark's already gone through, everything that we look for in a contestant. But if you go back to if you're slamming reality shows, you might as well be slamming all of television, because everyone always asks the question, well, reality, isn't it dying? Isn't it dead? It's going to go away. It's no longer here. And when you look at the history of television, it all started with, or even going back to radio for that matter, it started with reality. Dick Clark would always slam American Idol because he was like, they ripped off some guy, I don't even remember his name, like Jack Henry's old radio bit from the 30s. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But the point is it's always been around. There are some shows that are, you can quote unquote make them, more intelligent than others. But the bottom line is, everybody's watching them, and anything that enters the mainstream is slammed. The thing is, you have to read all that criticism with a grain of salt and not take it too seriously.
Well, and also the economics of it, which is that the very popular reality shows are underwriting these very expensive original shows, which are getting a smaller and smaller audience as
the market forces are in reality television's favor. As the audience fragments onto the small cable channels and the broadcast networks lose audience, and there's less critical mass for big shows, there's more and more need to reduce the budgets of entertainment, period, across the board. And you'll see scripted programs as well are going through a lot of budget cuts, but it really favors reality television because, dollar for dollar, we can give you more television in reality than you can in a scripted project.
Yeah, can I say, it definitely is economics. Ergo, that's bad food. But it is I'm serious. Like a lot of things that we had to deal with, the conditions, some people's health was in jeopardy because they had to cut off the air conditioner so it didn't interfere with the sound. And it was in the middle of a heat wave in New York. 3 people fainted on our show, so including Tim Gunn. So it was like...
It was still harder on Survivor.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, we're making clothes. As I said, obviously way different show. We're making clothes here. We're not on some island in Gabon, eating steaks or something. What do they do? Is that what they do?
Eat nothing.
Oh yeah, eat nothing. Fine. So I'm just saying, but the funny thing is, one of the production assistants said that, if you're going to complain about some bad food, we can, this is going to be Survivor in an instant. You won't get any food or something. He said he threatened us, and you know, we were sort of at her mercy, so we're like, okay, we'll take that brown piece of salad, you know, or brown piece of lettuce, so yeah.
So, I mean, picking up on the questions about the audience, so, Greg, how much do you know about who your audience is likely to be for a show and who the audience actually is once it's on? I mean, do you do, like, what kinds of audience research do you do? Like, do you do testing, or do you just, like, launch things and see how they fly, and then how do you monitor that kind of stuff?
Well, traditionally the networks control all of that.
Right.
So, it used to be really fantastic. We used to just order series and just throw them on the air, you know, if they thought they were really good, and an audience came or an audience didn't come. Unfortunately, now it's gotten to this point where everything is focus tested. So you go and you do a pilot, and they screen it to a bunch of people who are unemployed and live in Las Vegas. They're very angry, and they give a lot of feedback, some good, some bad, and then that determines whether the show gets picked up. I mean, no one, it's really funny, no one at the network really wants to have accountability anymore and really put themselves on the line. So the focus groups inform a lot. And then once the show gets on the air, there's all kinds of analytics that are done that tell you where it's popular, what markets it's really popular in, what the age demo is, and what they, you know, and then you do deeper digs into what people like and what they don't like about the show. And it's very important once the show's up and running that you always want to create a new way of doing the old show, and you want to keep it fresh so people still keep watching it. But at the same time, you don't want to freak out your core demos watching the show and just do a complete left turn and do something really different.
A little tip about what's going on these days is that the common thinking used to be that it was males, 18 to 34, that drove the advertisers and commanded the best advertising money and were the audience that the channels were all after. It turns out now that's all changed, and that young women are the absolute tastemakers of television. Most of the cable channels are geared toward women, including VH1 and E and Bravo, and I think the common thinking is it's the women in the household that are determining the entertainment choices, and that shows, for the most part these days, are lensed through an idea toward the female demographic. And all my development is lensed that way. There's very little programming geared at men anymore, really. I mean, even Comedy Central is one of the few channels that really cares about a male audience, and their ratings are just not very good. Men are not watching as much television, at least not reality. They're watching sports, or they're on the internet, but they're hard to get to watch a television show. So it's really all about women these days. Yeah.
I mean, going back to the kind of the women's market, I mean, one of the things that's been so interesting about some of the shows that that I've been watching is the ways in which kind of openly gay men become these vehicles for these different kinds of shows, and the ways in which, for instance, Bravo marketed Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. They knew the gays were going to come anyway, so they didn't have to do much work on that. They did this very aggressive marketing to heterosexual women because they wanted the women to watch and then to kind of bring the men along with them. But what's been really interesting, particularly when people kind of trash reality television, I think it's been an amazing opportunity to see a whole diversity of people, ordinary people who are out there anyway, on shows, because the risks of putting people on that might be controversial or get negative ratings or whatever are so much lower with reality television than with fictional shows, where obviously the startup costs are so much more expensive. So, and I'm very struck by you mentioned Tim Gunn, who's obviously openly gay, and also Carlson Cressley, who was on How to Look Good Naked, as well as the Queer Eye things, and the ways in which these sort of particular gay men have sort of become arbiters of a particular kind of taste that becomes very hip and very attractive, particularly to women. So, can you talk a little bit about that whole crossover, how that works?
For gay men?
Yeah, well, no.
You wore a dress, you were in master wig.
I do know something about crossover. The kind of what I think is a fairly new phenomenon towards openly gay men being these hosts and being these You see it on Sex and the City too. It's the gay best friend, the best girlfriend who's a gay man. I don't know why it is. I do see it. I see what you're saying. It might be that you know, that openly gay men concentrate on women's clothing. You know, they talk about it and they critique it and they have a lot of opinions about it, whereas heterosexual men tend to just say, hey. They don't know why they like it so much.
I can speak to that. I mean, it's art imitating life. It's the way it's always been. I mean, especially if you live in a cosmopolitan city. I lived in New York for a number of years. I had nothing in Paris. I've had nothing but lots of gay friends, or yeah, I still have like my gay best friend, my gay husband. But it's almost like now all these reality shows, all these other shows are just catching up to that. I mean, this was probably like from the 80s. I mean, even. I hate to mention it, but like Madonna talking about Keith Haring. Yeah. You know, like she's like, oh, that was my gay best friend. You know, and everybody loves Madonna. So, you know, like it was already happening. It's just that all these shows are just catching up to it, and then I guess marketers or everyone else is realizing that, wow, this is what's happening in real life, and let's explore that.
I think there's something else to touch on, and I didn't coin this phrase. Somebody coined it. I don't know who it is, but they say whether it's pop culture, music, or television, you get the gays, you get the girls, and then you get everybody else. Meaning that.
Samantha said that.
For some reason, talent execs are always saying that to me all the time from networks. This is how you got to do it. And, so it's thought that they're the tastemakers, especially in cosmopolitan areas, and then when you have them talking about it, and the girls start talking about it. And guys are dumb and like sheep, and they'll go to anything the girls are talking about, and then you spread out into the red states. But I think the other thing, and why you see a lot of gay people on reality shows, I think it started with the real world, and people. The most common reason that people go on reality shows, well, two things. Number one, they want to be famous, but number two, they're at a point of transition. Things are changing in their lives. They want something new to shake it up. It's going to, create something different. And when gay people are going through that moment where they're coming out, it's very difficult. It's for them and for everybody. Everyone's coming out about something in their lives, whether it's that or something else. It's very relatable and it's extremely emotional. And when we're putting people on shows, we're looking for people that are extremely emotional, that are going to wear their heart on their sleeve. They're going to tell you exactly, everything that's running through their mind. And when you have one of those moments that's happening in real life, and you're documenting it, there's something that is always fascinating. We saw that very early on in the Real World, and it's been recycled every season of the Real World, and every other show picked up on it and started, doing.
Do you mean with Pedro Zamora and his whole?
And even the first season, I think the first season had an openly gay character, I think, and.
Yeah, I think
right.
Yeah.
But also, can I just speak that it's not even just about whether you want to be famous or you're transitioning, but now it's become like a business model. I noticed, for me, yes, I was transitioning. I did start a fashion label, but it wasn't like, it was really it was early, for me. And also I'm on Project Runway, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been doing this that long. What am I doing here? However, you look at shows like Cake Boss. I think him doing that show is, I've never seen it, but I've only heard about it, and now there's like lines around the block for this man's cakes, and I don't even know who he is, but I've still heard about him. And what's her name on? Bethany, Skinny Girl Margarita. That's been like a huge success, like a Cinderella story that you saw it from the beginning. It's fruition from when it was just an idea when she's talking to her girlfriends, and now whatever, she's like a multimillionaire. So it has been kind of like its own little business model, another marketing tool that's, I don't know, under the guise of entertainment / documentary, whatever you want to call it.
So I would like to invite people to ask questions, make comments, dish the dirt on your alum friends from way back when. Yeah.
Mark, as one of your roommates, my question is, on Monday through Wednesday, when you were dressing up as a woman, was that your own thing? Or that was, I wasn't asking Wig, you told me it was. No, that's not my question. My question is, if you had to pick one thing that attracts audiences to reality TV, what would you say that is? What is it about reality TV that makes people want to watch it?
I think it's the sense of danger. It's that it is more unpredictable than scripted television. If it's done well. If it's done well, you are surprised by you're surprised constantly in reality television. The other thing I think is that you have the shot at getting a raw glimpse of human experience. You will see somebody in extremis, and you can relate to them or wonder what it would be like to be in their shoes. And it's very direct. It's like you're watching people that you could know, who could live next door to you in these situations. Survivor, they're taking, you know, New York City lawyers who we may know, and they're starving them. And the question is, what would happen if I was starving? How would I react if I was starving and people were trying to vote me out? And so you just have this direct connection to the people on the screen. One of the first shows I did was a show called Singled Out in Los Angeles, and it was a dating show. And it was basically 50 single men and 50 single women all trying to date, one guy or one girl. And it really was only about it was kids watching kids. It was, if I'm 18 years old and watching MTV, I can see another 18-year-old on MTV, and I can think about what they're wearing, and I can think about whether I would date them, and I can think, it's a personal experience. You can go right into the screen and live with the characters there. I think that's one of the biggest draws.
Greg, what do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the unpredictability of what's going to happen. That was the thing that first attracted people, to it in a big. Even for me, and watching Blind Date for the first time, I was like, oh my God, this is genius! You're following around two people on a date. Why has no one ever done this before in the history of television? It's kind of ridiculous. And you really wouldn't know. Some guy would say something incredibly moronic, and you'd get slapped across the face, and you would be like, wow. And in a time when there's a lot, I was going to name some specific shows, but there's a lot of, scripted shows that are just very formulaic, it's 3 laughs per page, everything that's going to happen. You get tired of watching it, and you want to see something that is incredibly different. And that's the challenge on us right now, is how to make, because everyone's so savvy, they're going on these shows nowadays, like, they come on and they're thinking 3 steps ahead of what you're thinking. And you don't want someone just doing something just to be sensational, because that's not authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm wondering what your take is on medical reality shows, like the Boston Medical Show. I'm a physician in the emergency department at Columbia, and we're being filmed currently for a new reality show that's coming out, Columbia Medical, or whatever they're going to call it. And initially we were all incredibly resistant to being filmed in life and death situations with children. And I still have my hesitations about it, because I feel like, only something bad can come out of it, nothing personally good can come out of it. And I just wanted to know what both of your take is on that.
It's a very brave thing to hand yourself to a reality television producer. It's you are handing your public, whatever the public perception of you is going to be shaped by these people. They're going to edit. They're going to tell the story of what happened. They may catch you in a moment that you would not want publicized on the front page of the New York Times. It is a very, very difficult thing, as these guys know. It's a brave, anybody who goes on a reality television show is very brave. Yeah, and I don't think that it was necessarily completely positive for you, because you were happy to leave after 4 episodes. For Charlie, I get the feeling that you were more like, devil may care. It's like, how bad can it be, and I'll be fine no matter what, unless I actually starve, I guess. But for you to put yourself on television is a great thing, and yes, you're taking there's no other way to say it. You're taking a personal risk for how you are portrayed on television, and the people who are making the show don't have your best interest in mind. They're trying to make it entertaining. I don't know actually the angle of the show. Is it very, is it really just this is what doctors do, or are they trying to make story out of relationships?
They want story.
They want the real life
Grey's
Anatomy.
Life and death. There was a show, Boston Medical. I don't even know how to turn on my television, so I don't watch television. It takes my 2 children to do it for me. So I did watch.
So you're in real trouble.
I'm in real trouble, right? I can intubate and save a life, and that's what I've done on the being filmed. But it's funny, because initially I thought I would be more nervous because the camera was in my face, but that didn't happen because I don't think there's extra adrenaline that flows other than when you're saving somebody's life. That's sort of, you know, in and of itself, adrenaline enough.
Yeah.
So that, interestingly enough, didn't happen, the nervous part. But you know, most of us had real trepidation about it, and we were coerced by our, you know, the people at Columbia to, because they thought it would be great PR.
It could go the other way. It could be that you are going to come off fantastically as the wonderful person you are, honestly trying to do your job to save people's lives. That's a hard thing to make look negative. So I would think that you do great work, and if, you know, but your work will be shown. So it really is going to depend on you. And I say that you're very brave for going on television doing your job. It's I wouldn't like television cameras watching me do my job.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think any of us would like that.
But yeah, the only other thing I was going to add, is it done for news? Like I know Hopkins 24/7 was done for.
It's Hopkins 24/7, Boston Medical. It's the same people that did it.
Yeah, then it's a different degree of standard than Mark and I are held to. I'd say you're in much safer hands, but you know, and I think if you look back, I saw Hopkins 24/7. I didn't see the Boston one, and it made all the doctors look like heroes. I mean, it was everything you'd expect and everything you'd want to see in a show. That's why you're watching it. You're not watching even Grey's Anatomy for that matter to hate all the doctors and think, you know, it's not like they're going to take you and turn you into a Real Housewives type scenario. So I
Is it like Life in the ER? What, you know, like the Real Life in the ER? Remember that came on? It was a series of different ERs around the country. Because my cousin was on that. He's actually he's chief of surgery, like in the emergency ward in South Central LA. So you get like 4 or 5 gunshot wounds like every weekend, you know. And the time that he was on there, he literally had to cut somebody open and, you know, pump their heart manually until they got him to the OR. And they did this all on film. And I'm like, how can he do that with the camera in his face and be focused on his job? You know, when you have somebody, literally has somebody's life in his hands.
Right, but you
like
don't
that.
think about the camera,
like, he doesn't even
think about the life.
It's not even
that's
about
the point. You really,
you know.
it's that, you know, the parents are there. I mean, you don't
Right,
think
it's
about
like
all
it's
that.
not even about that, but
So-
unfortunately the guy did die and he had to make the call. And again, like you have to do all, I mean, it really, and we're watching this as a family, like how can you do that? You know, like that's hard in your real life, let alone somebody capturing on camera and millions of people seeing it.
Yeah.
I'm really curious if it's standard practice now for the shows to, let's say that you go on a reality TV show and you're the doctor that saved a life, and then she gets a bunch of offers to write books and do a bunch of other side things. Is it standard now that the show gets a cut of all that, or the show is her agent?
Not necessarily the show. I will say that in the old days, like 5 years ago, the shows were pretty much paid for by advertising dollars, and the network was happy with that. They were happy taking in large amounts of advertising dollars and making their television shows, and the other side businesses they weren't interested in. As the economy has changed and the advertising dollars have dried up, everybody is scrambling to figure out all the other ways you can make money on a television show, from selling it overseas to producing it in France to selling books or integrating products into them, or just any number of ways of deferring the, you know, trying to ease the budget strains. And the networks have gotten much more aggressive about holding on to the business of the show. I was fortunate in my career because I was able to sell reality shows before that all happened. And I was able to maintain ownership and control over my shows. So when they sold overseas, that was my business. And when I licensed clips to movies or things, that was all for me. Nowadays, that's not ever going to happen again, and the networks control everything. So I think the answer to your question is when you say it's the show, it depends on who you're talking about. But yes, it is very common now that if you sign up for a reality show and the network says, well, we're going to spend $6 million to make a television show about you, and we're going to make you a star because of our viewers, we're going to own some of your success. And that means, I mean, American Idol is a great example of that. Those kids come on and they're signed up. They're going to do the live tour for that production company. They're going to make albums under that production label. They're owned by the American Idol producers.
If they leave and do a commercial and you were like you were top 24 or whatever, or even less than that, and you left and did a commercial with Ford, do they get a cut of that, or?
In that case, I don't know. I mean, I think they own your music career. I don't know if they own your personal likeness.
To be honest, it really depends on your contract of what you signed up with. I mean, some people are under contract for a year, some are 2, some is 4 years, but it really depends on the show's contract and what's outlined in that.
I just did a show about a restaurant, celebrities opening a restaurant. We just wrapped it 2 nights ago, and we negotiated with the restaurant group that was opening the restaurant for a percentage of the restaurant. So now I own 5% of this restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. But if it becomes a big hit because it was a television show launching this summer at July 9th, famous VH1, if it becomes a big hit, then, you know, I don't know, maybe 5% is worth something. I don't
Because
know.
the Housewives, they all have like 5 different businesses, and you know that Bravo's making money off that.
Yeah, yeah. But in the defense of the producers and the TV channel and all, they are taking a risk. They're investing millions of dollars.
Oh, I'm all for it.
In
No, it's genius. You know, you go off and do 5 side businesses. Why ever pay an actor to do a show ever again?
So
Why have scripted television ever again when you can do 5 little businesses?
I like the way you think.
Charlie, did you do any spin-off money-making activities after Survivor?
No,
You made it work for you.
I had the final tribal council on a Saturday, and I was back reviewing contracts on a Monday. So I didn't do any of that. But I think there were like severe restrictions within the contract, which I didn't even read, even though I'm a lawyer, that was this high about what I could and couldn't do. But given that I knew that I wasn't going to pursue any of that, I just was moved.
You weren't going to sell your story.
I knew some of the actors like carved out certain provisions in order to be able to participate in commercials and stuff, and I don't think CBS has a cut of Survivor is doing that because the Survivor's not about our talents. But maybe they do.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. What is it? Is there an average budget per hour if you've got 8 to 10 episodes? I mean, I know there's so many. Whether or not the show's popular, there probably
Well, mostly depends on where it
variables,
airs. It mostly depends on where it airs. You want to talk about budgets? You might, as a network executive. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, they range. On the low end, when you're talking like third-tier cable, you're starting at 150 a half hour. There are places that are less than that, but Mark and I don't go to them.
Right.
And then on the high end, you're dealing with networks.
150 for an hour, half
150 for a half hour.
$150,000. And so they usually buy in a clump of 8 or 10. So you're hoping to get $1 million, $1.5 million to do that series. In the higher end cable, you can get as high as $600,000 an hour. I've done some for I think as high as $700,000 for an hour. So a series of 10 costs $7 million to the network. But network television,
broadcast, yeah, it's a whole other thing. It depends on the show. If you get big talent involved and there's a bidding war over it, I mean, it can get north of.
Civilians. So what are people making in reality TV? A host,
Making
civilian host.
Oh, host.
a civilian host.
Yes.
Civilian host.
From my point of
You
view,
missed the early. You said they're celebrities or civilians. Mark said earlier. So the everyday
the contestant. If you're a contestant on a reality show, at least I can speak for our. I don't know, Charlie or Kristin, what you guys made, but we tend to look at it as you're competing for the prize. So that's.
You don't make anything.
No, I'm sorry. I'm being.
I make
$40,000. Like nanny, not a contestant. The non-contestant show.
Are you talking about an expert though, like Super Nanny? Or it all depends. I mean, if you're dealing with Super Nanny, it's a little bit different because she was already a celebrity overseas and she was part of what was bringing the format over here. So it's a little different. And she made approximately $25,000 a year one, and the show takes off and does well, and then they renegotiate their deal.
Maybe like 5% of the budget. So if it's a tiny show, 5% of the budget is a lot less, and if it's a network show, 5% of the budget is a lot more. I would think that maybe 5% of the budget would be you'd be judging if it's but if it's a super celebrity star, I think maybe as you just said, it's like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, if you're dealing with like an A-list comedian, I mean, we put out offers to people to host Don't Forget the Lyrics for, it's pretty fantastic, $500,000 an episode host. We didn't pay Wayne that much, but where we started out, and you shoot 3 episodes a day, that's $1.5 million a day, which isn't bad.
So we only got about 5 minutes left, so let's do some quick questions. So you right at the back. Yeah, yep, that's you.
All right. Well, I was interested, Mark, you said, earlier, you're very brave to put your story in the hands of a reality TV producer, but I also wonder, I mean, you've also said, you know, we're not journalists, but is there really a huge difference between, you know, there's a saying in journalism that the art of writing a profile is, you know, gaining your subject's trust and then betraying them mercilessly. So, you know, at the moment when you've shot your material and, you know, you're getting ready to cut together and shaping the story, and the journalist goes home and they're getting ready to, you know, write a profile or shape the story that they've been assigned to write. Is there a huge difference there, and what do you see that difference as?
Wow. I mean, to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of manipulation of our subjects involved psychologically. I have to be a part-time psychologist. I have to predict their emotions a little bit. I have to put them in uncomfortable situations. I have to know that it'll be an uncomfortable situation for them. I need to tell them when I'm telling them that we're going to do something the next day, I'm not being completely open about what it is we're doing the next day because it's going to be an uncomfortable situation for them. So it's not an honest process from me towards the subjects. But I do feel that in the end, you know, listen, how I sleep at night is that people come to these shows, especially now, they know what this is. They know what reality television is. They know that they made, you know, they know the risk involved and they've weighed that risk and benefit. I would say in general, the people who do our shows, they end up getting what they came for. They get the fame, they get the appearance fees. I mean, it's crazy. Somebody who's on a show and pops as a star in a show, as a reality contestant, especially in these, you know, dating kind of shows, they can end up getting $5,000 a weekend in clubs just to show up, you know, and draw an audience and stuff. So they get what they came for. And I don't know if I'm answering your question about, you know, the journalistic integrity, but you know, there is a lot of dishonesty from me to them, but in the end, I think it all comes out in the wash. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, in the blue shirt.
Yeah, quick question. I was fortunate enough to be a producer of a smaller show of Ultimate Gamer, a reality show with 12 video game contestants put together, and you know, the same pattern as all of these. The biggest challenge that we had was finding people who were really great video gamers, the best in the country, getting the credibility with the audience that they were great video gamers with the others of the characters. We really wanted some of the fun characters, and sometimes when we got them all over the internet, we were trashed because those aren't the best gamers. I can beat them in this game. Yeah. How do you balance that on some of the...
The more narrow your casting pool, the more difficult time you have finding great characters. Mm-hmm. Survivor finds amazing people because there is no limit on what kind of person it is. Just somebody willing to go into the wild.
Thank you.
But as I said, some shows are very specific. You have to be a great video game player, and then your job as a producer is to find the great video game players who are also great personalities. And as we know, those are mutually exclusive.
Okay, one last question. Anybody have a burning question? Yes.
I'm just curious. I have a lot of side conversations with my friends, especially on and off Twitter, about reality TV. And so for the producers, I'm really curious about your thoughts on a pervasive notion about The Biggest Loser, that it's weight loss porn. Particularly because, I mean, because it's not just about their journey in terms of the whole weight loss thing, but also that they seem to find the most attractive heavy people that exist in the universe. I mean, really, most of the people on that show are just people that are attractive at 400 pounds, so that by the time they lose 200, they're even more attractive and now dateable somehow. So, I mean, we haven't really, I mean, you know, I was gonna say, Mark sort of touched on the idea of that attractiveness plays a part. But I mean, honestly and truly, like, when you think about the characters, the pop from the screen, isn't that also really kind of a mainstream idea of attractiveness at the end of the day?
I mean, yes. I mean, we're looking for a popular show, and popular is as mainstream as we can possibly be, and attractiveness factors into it. I believe personally that people like watching attractive people slightly more attractive than they are, and that's I'm guilty of it, and I feel like maybe we're all guilty of it, and that's what you're getting. You're getting the networks and the producers are trying to deliver you what you want.
But it doesn't always go hand in hand. I think if you look at a lot of other shows, when I was doing Wife Swap, a huge concern. I mean, I don't think anyone called any of those families attractive by any stretch of the imagination. When we were looking at that, it was a huge concern I had. At that time, there were no unattractive reality people on TV at all. And I thought it was really going to bomb because of that. I was really freaked out. You know, it just so happens that, you know, people that were less attractive had more interesting stories to tell, were more interesting in general when it came to their families and more revealing about the way they run their families. And the show popped without them being attractive. So it just depends.
I don't think it's that shallow anymore, to be honest. I mean, because there are lots of people. I see a lot of unattractive reality show people, but yeah, I mean, look at Flavor. I mean, he had his own show.
And you also get slammed. Last night, you also get slammed a lot by having attractive people on shows because people don't think they're real. They think they're just casting actors.
Yeah.
So.
But I do believe they are on purpose, on Biggest Loser, they are on purpose casting the most attractive, heavy people they can find. I think that's absolutely true.
I know, it's sort of amazing how they do that. But, I mean, it really is by the time they've lost all that weight. Okay, on that note, thank you